It is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is
The Hyperspace.
Podcasting in the 25th century.
Welcome in, podcast pioneers, to the hyperspace. Podcasting in the 25th century. The interweb's first and still only podcast. My name's Matt.
I'm Jared.
Mike.
Season 4!
It's hard to believe that Season 4 is now in the books, as they say, or
This
as
is
they
it, folks.
said in the 21st century.
We have covered some ground.
Yeah, this has been a pretty big season for us.
We did a lot. You know, I was looking back at some of this season's episodes, and this season, by far and away, is my favorite one so far. Specifically, the one I liked the most, guys, was when we talked about the war movies. I thought that was such a good discussion, and it was such a fun discussion.
Yeah, that was from earlier in the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the war movies show as well. I think we all had some good picks. Specifically, Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor coming out on the top spot, obviously.
Well, I mean, it changed lives.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, we launched the Karate Kid Virgin series with Mike.
Yes, Mike he's been a great sport, and it's been a fun journey
It's true.
to take with Mike. And we're not done yet. We're not done.
No.
Now the virginity continues into season 5. But Mike, so what do you think? I mean, over the past few months, you've consumed a lot of Karate Kid. So, do you think you're a better person for that?
A better person.
Are you sorry you did it?
Well, no, I'm not sorry I did it. Why would I be sorry?
I don't know.
You learned some good techniques, though.
I like the show. I like, the movies, even the third one being as insanely
Man can't stand. He can't fight.
ridiculous as it is.
Well, that's good. It's good to hear you say that, because some people with Karate Kid Part 3, their enjoyment of it comes from their past with it, having grown up many years with it. But you just have seen it once, and we talked through it and made fun of it the whole time. But you seem to still have a soft spot for it. A soft spot much like Ralph Macchio's midsection through most of the film.
Well, also, it's full on, it's canon. They're not
Oh, it
ignoring
is.
it on the show, so.
No, so you better embrace it or get lost, because that's what's up. We just released our first Cobra Kai Karate Kid Virgin episode, and I must say here, I think I made an unfortunate slip in that show.
What? What'd you say?
As we record this, it's August 30th, 2021, and yesterday Ed Asner passed away
Yes.
at 91. He had quite a haul, that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And in the show, I make a joke saying, I thought he died 15 years ago. And this show dropped the day after he died for real. So, I'm a scumbag, and I apologize to Ed Asner's relatives and all his friends that listen to this show.
Look, we were making a joke. Listen, guys, we're from the 25th century. We know when everyone kind of already passed. So, I mean, it was an inside joke, but
Yeah.
tasteless all the same.
Yeah, very tasteless. R.I.P. Ed Asner, dang. Voice of Jabba the Hutt in the Star Wars radio drama.
That's really what he's known for, isn't it? That was it.
Yeah, it is. That's his legacy into the 25th century anyway.
And wasn't he Santa Claus in Chronicles of
Elf.
Narnia?
Yeah.
Oh, Elf, that's right.
It Chronicles of Narnia.
I knew he was Santa Claus in something.
Yeah. Hey, Santa Claus directed by Jon Favreau. How about that?
Wow, it all comes together. He was Jabba the Hutt, and then he was in a movie directed by the guy who voiced a character in Solo.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's all he's done is voiced a character in Solo.
It's been a busy season, though. We launched another YouTube channel this season. We got some original video out on that one. If you haven't checked out the Hyperspace original podcast videos, check it out. We got some unique, fun stuff there.
Yeah, that channel's still a work in progress, but we have big plans for it.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
What else, guys? What else is happening? We got a little hiatus coming up, but
Yes.
we're going to come back strong in the holiday season.
Well, yeah, we decided we were going to take a month or so off just because it is going to be a busy holiday season. We've got Dune coming out.
Yep.
We have the book of Boba Fett coming out, and
So do you think the novelization of the show would be called The Show of Boba Fett?
of Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
It's possible. I don't know. It's very possible. I tell you what, I think the new Spider-Man trailer looks pretty awesome. So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that too. Yeah, it's going to be a busy fall and winter around the hyperspace. So we're going to take this time to kind of rest up and get ready for you.
Yeah, exactly.
This season, we actually, unfortunately, I don't know about Mike, I do not have another Conan update to share. I'm still on issue 8. I have issue 9 in the crosshairs, but I'm not pulling the trigger on that yet. How about you, Mike? You got a new Batman update for us yet?
No.
From your Arkham figures?
I have not. I've not been out and about.
I see. Well, that's disappointing.
Right down the road by a Long Island grocery store up here, there's a comic book shop, so I have to stop in and I have to see if there's any Conan issues there. And I'm going to scout for you. I'm going to see if I can find anything.
Okay. That's pretty awesome. I can send you a list of what I need.
Why don't you just send him a list of the ones you have?
700.
No, I have a lot more than the first 8 issues. But
no, I know. Send me the list because I'm going to check it out. And I want to actually bring my son in there just to see if he likes to peruse the comics or if it's just too boring. Because I got to tell you, these kids today, they've got the iPad in their hand and they're playing,
yeah, they don't
everything
give a
under the
crap.
sun. I don't think they care at all. It's amazing they know how to read. One of the big things that I thought was pretty cool, we live in a really great time. It's not the best of times, but it's not a bad time. And I cite things like what's coming out and what's available, I should say, on things like Disney Plus, and to have the kind of level of entertainment to at your fingertips, to me, to stream at any point, any place is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was starting to revisit was The Mandalorian. And I started to go back into season 1, and little by little I'm trying to just watch it all over again, get myself kind of reacquainted with some of the stuff maybe I missed the first time. And it's just amazing. And one of the things that I hadn't watched, because I know you guys watched, was The Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's just next level stuff what they're doing. And this is no secret, of course. I mean, we've talked about this, but it's just amazing to hear. And these guys talk about what Star Wars means to them. And, we've, of course, talked about how we believe that Favreau and Filoni are the dynamic duo right now of Star Wars. And that, we feel pretty comfortable that they're guiding the ship in the right direction. Mm-hmm. But, you hear them talk about it and you start to really understand the passion as a fan. And
yes.
They're at the age, we're all around the same age. They're older than us, but, we're still in that same fan zone growing up with it. And
I think Mike's probably older than Filoni.
Filoni's our age.
Yeah.
And Favreau is older than all of us, but,
yeah.
I think that's the spectrum. But yeah, I really feel that Star Wars is in good stewarded hands right now. But I have to tell you, it was very funny watching the most recent Star Wars gallery where he was talking, and there's a lot of Kathleen Kennedy in that one. And my thoughts about Kathleen Kennedy aside, it's funny how Favreau is completely engrossed in talking everything Star Wars and Star Wars related, and then you have these bizarre edit cutscenes where he talks about Fantasia, which I feel like they almost made him make comparisons to Fantasia because there are these strange cutaway edits from his monologue, and it just didn't fit. But I guess that's Disney for you.
That's an interesting point. I think it's possible he was coached. Hey, do you think we can throw in some Fantasia footage here?
They'll totally relate. But how cool is it that Star Wars is getting these two guys to really deep dive and kind of fill in the blanks?
Well, I think that most recent gallery, the one about the Luke Skywalker episode,
mm-hmm.
I loved that episode. It was just kind of this love letter to Luke Skywalker. And it might as well have said, hey, we're sorry about Last Jedi. Here's two guys who genuinely like Star Wars and are good storytellers. And here's Mark Hamill looking not miserable in an interview talking about Star Wars.
That's true, man.
So there's a clip of Dave Filoni talking about Luke Skywalker and Star Wars. Why don't you cue that up and we'll talk about it after you play it?
Sure.
This job is great in so many ways, and I think people think the job is great because we get to tell the story, because we do these effects, because we get these experiences, because we go to Celebration, right? But also great is just standing on the side and watching somebody. Again, like I said, I saw that child inside John that he experienced Star Wars. I sit there with Peyton. You see your crew just staring at Mark, and you realize they're remembering what it meant to them. And you realize that you've been a part of constructing something that's giving that experience to people, this good feeling, which fundamentally Star Wars should deliver a good feeling, an uplifting feeling in you and your family, your kids, whatever.
And then Rian Johnson comes in.
Do you think that was a obvious slight?
Well, I don't. At this point in the game,
a jab.
We're almost 3 years removed from The Last Jedi, and there's no question anymore that people kind of understand its very divisive legacy at this point. Everything Filoni is saying there is like, it should make you feel good. It should bring you a good feeling. And it should not leave you bewildered and stunned in a bad way at what you just saw.
Well, they're approaching everything they do from a fan's perspective, which is pretty amazing. They every story that they tell, every character they create or focus on, they're thinking of the fan. They call it in the episode, the gallery episode, deep cuts, which I liked a lot. And they're picking like very obscure things to focus on that if you're not a fan, if you hadn't grown up watching it, you'll enjoy seeing it because it's a good story. But if you are a fan, it's the ultimate kind of fan service that they get to focus on something that you as a fan growing up will understand. This in a crowd of people that might not have seen Star Wars, you get the inside joke. And they're not making it just as an inside joke. They're doing it to expand the universe, but also give the fans back something to say, thank you for following this all your life and being a part of it and caring about it, because we care about it too. And we want you to care about what we do. And that's a special thing. And to take the reins of Star Wars and to approach it from that kind of, lens, that viewpoint is a very, I think it's a very like honest way of approaching Star Wars as someone who grew up with it and as a fan. Mm-hmm. It's just really, and that's why it resonates. That's why you hear people say, I really kind of gave up on Star Wars until I saw The Mandalorian, because it really brings you right back into that zone of what you liked about Star Wars when you saw it as a kid.
Yeah. And Favreau says in that special, he wants this to be something that families watch together. Mm-hmm. Like, because he made a good point that, everybody has their own login, their own screen, And, everybody can go off and watch what they want to. The Mandalorian is the one show in our house. We all take our phones and we leave them in the kitchen and we come to the... Of course, I watch it before they do because I have to. Because, we do the shows and stuff and I got to...
Of course.
So my daughter, 14 years old, and my wife, we sat down as a family usually on Saturday evenings, and we would watch The Mandalorian with no devices in our hands and just watch it. Because my wife is incapable of watching television without a phone in her hand. Like, she watches these Asian dramas, and it's all, it's all in Korean, and she's looking at her phone the whole time. I'm like, how do you even know what's going on? This whole show's in Korean. She's like, will you shut up and leave me alone? Okay.
It's pretty amazing. Wait, hold on. So she's watching Korean dramas with subtitles.
Yeah.
With her phone in her hand.
But she's on her phone.
And not missing a beat.
Apparently. Sometimes I'll say, hey, what did that guy just say to her? And she's like, what? I was like, I was just asking. And then she calls me a jerk and tells me to leave her alone. So, but I said, they're in The Mandalorian. Nobody has a phone in their hand. We're watching this show. And, lo and behold, it worked. And everybody enjoys themselves. So, that's a great thing about that show. And I'm going to do the same thing with Book of Boba Fett when it comes on. I don't care what my daughter's doing. It's like, hey, you're coming in here. You're going to turn your iPad off and stop chatting with your goofy friends. And you're going to come in here and spend time with us. And by God, you'll like it.
And but it's it's their passion for the show as they're making it, which translates through the the TV to us. And it's funny to listen to these guys talk, to listen to Jon Favreau mention, like, for example, focusing on the Luke Skywalker episode, because this is I think where they really
about
get
that.
Yeah. But when he mentions, it's not. The Luke Skywalker is reverent, but when he mentions that R2-D2 came onto the set.
I want Mike to explain what an R2-D2 moment is, because he kind of has coined that phrase in his own fandom. So, Mike, why don't you tell us what an R2-D2 moment is?
The R2-D2 moment, as coined by me, first occurred in the year 1999 when we went to go see The Phantom Menace. And I remember the movie opens with the familiar crawl, and but then you're automatically introduced to characters. And now Star Wars you've grown up with for, I don't know, by that time, what was it on? Its 25th, 30th anniversary?
Close.
And so, all these characters you'd seen in these three movies were Star Wars to you. So you had these new characters, and even though Ewan McGregor was Obi-Wan, it was still strange seeing it. And you were just kind of like, it was just kind of like, okay, you're just kind of watching. And then the moment that R2-D2 appears on the screen, you're like, oh, okay, I'm watching a Star Wars movie. And it really kind of draws you into, I think, if you look at the series as a whole, it feels like anytime they want to, really anchor it into the Star Wars verse, they bring in R2-D2. And that's what I call the R2 moment. Was that moment in the Nubian cruiser when R2-D2 shows up and you're like, oh, yeah, it's Star Wars. Oh, here I am. Here it is.
I think that's probably one of your greatest contributions to our discussion, is that I've always liked that, and I use it myself now. And I don't even have to apply it to Star Wars. If you see something in some kind of franchise that that anchors you in the familiar, that's an R2 moment, even if it's not Star Wars. So we're going to hashtag R2 moment.
That's a good one.
Apparently, Jon Favreau himself has heard of this. And let's take a listen to what he says.
It was already intense because it was already, my God, here's Mark Hamill dressed as Luke Skywalker on our set in a starship hallway. It felt like a dream. It was very, very strange. And I was fine. And then R2-D2 rolled on. And I just had a moment where R2-D2 was there. And that's when I broke down. And it felt, I didn't understand why. It felt silly, but I started tearing up. And I just was like, let me remember this moment. Even now, I'm sort of moved. I don't understand why. I really don't. I don't understand why. But it just shows you how deep that stuff goes and what it touches from your childhood and how you felt then.
That's exactly what I was saying. He's on the show. He's producing the show. He knows everything that's going to happen in the production. He knows R2's about to come out. Mm-hmm. But yet when he sees R2 on the set next to Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Well, I liked what Filoni said to him. He goes like, if you have Luke, you get R2-D2 too.
That's where these guys are on the level, because he knows everything that's happening on his production and he still sees it and he's still getting choked up. It's that kind of love for Star Wars and that kind of respect for Star Wars and that kind of reverence for the characters. They mentioned that when they design a character, especially for that episode, and they introduce it or have it interact with Luke Skywalker and R2-D2, it has to be done right, because it's not just about their show anymore. It's about respecting the character of Luke Skywalker and R2-D2 and giving those story arcs the respect that they deserve. So, they take all that into account, and the love that they have and the passion for it makes me feel good about Star Wars. And to hear these guys get choked up about it at their age, knowing that R2's about to roll out and he still gets choked up, that's the guy who I want manning the Star Wars ship. No question.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And, I remember watching that, and, I fully expected it to be Luke because of Mike's prognostication.
Yes.
And I was like, it better be Luke. You got the X-Wing, you got the black robe, you got the green saber. And I thought it was hilarious in the show. They were calling him Plo Koon, and they had that crappy CGI Plo Koon head on Luke.
So if you haven't watched The Gallery and you're not familiar with it, Filoni's favorite Jedi apparently is Plo Koon. Which, by the way, somebody asked Rian Johnson who his favorite Jedi is. I bet he doesn't have one. But Filoni does. He's legit.
He doesn't know who Plo Koon is, Rian Johnson.
But so something I had mentioned when I saw that episode, when we talked about it on the podcast here, is that I felt that this is the first time that we really got to see Luke as a real Jedi, because we hadn't seen him as a real Jedi. And it's something that Mark Hamill had mentioned in that episode. He's like, you took the whole journey in the first 3 movies, getting him, from starting to training to, finally revealing, becoming a Jedi at the very end of Jedi, Return of the Jedi. And then you don't get to see him in living as a Jedi and being like a real Jedi. So even Mark Hamill is like, this is an amazing moment to see that character, fulfilling that kind of destiny where you get to see him actually becoming like a real Jedi.
Well, Hamill used a good analogy where he said, it's like you watch the movies about how James Bond becomes James Bond, and then you don't get to see him as James Bond.
Yes, that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And, hopefully, like I've said before, I don't think they're done with young Luke Skywalker quite yet, as they showed in this episode. It was interesting how they kind of delved into like the different methods, like the deep fake and then the airbrushing,
the de-aging,
and all that stuff. And from some of the tests I saw, they did not use deep fake. They went with some amalgamation of pasting his face, a de-aged face, onto another actor. And, it is what it is, and it looks fine. But I thought some of the deep fake stuff they were showing probably would have been a little more realistic looking. And I think that's something they're going to continue. Like Favreau said, he's like, in a couple of years, it's going to be indistinguishable from a real person.
It's interesting because, Jared, you threw a clip onto our chain a few weeks ago of Val Kilmer.
Yes.
But it wasn't Val Kilmer.
Yes.
Right.
That was the AI created his voice.
So they used similar technology for Luke's voice to recreate it, because what you see in that episode is not Mark Hamill's real voice. It's a AI version of his voice.
Yes.
And, I didn't have, believe it or not, and I've watched that episode, more times than I have the other episodes. It wasn't his face that really threw me, but the choppy dialogue, coming out of him. And I think not that I need them to redo this, because it's a good thing. It doesn't have to be a special edition episode all over again. But when you hear, like, just from the time they made that episode in production to now, the technology has already grown leaps and bounds.
Yes.
Because when we were listening to that Val Kilmer clip, that was phenomenal.
Yeah, that sounded
unbelievable.
Like Val Kilmer talking.
We all have the capacity to be creative. We're all driven to share our deepest dreams and ideas with the world. When we think of the most talented creative people, they speak to us in a unique way. A phrase we often hear is having a creative voice. But I was struck by throat cancer. After getting treated, my voice as I knew it was taken away from me. People around me struggle to understand me when I'm talking. But despite all that, I still feel I'm the exact same person. Still the same creative soul.
I mean, if you hadn't told me and you just say, hey, listen to Val Kilmer talking, I would just listen to it and assumed it was Val Kilmer. Mm-hmm. And the inflections, everything about it, it was just like perfect. So, the technology from deepfake to voice algorithmic AI has already grown since they made The Mandalorian. So to your point, what they could do with Luke Skywalker is, the sky's the limit. They can do anything right now.
Make no mistake, they're not going to be, in 10, 15 years, they're not recasting Indiana Jones. The tools will be there to create a 40-year-old Harrison Ford, and it will be indistinguishable from something that they shot back in the 80s. I mean,
that's insane. And
Lucasfilm has those assets. They have, think of, everything they have from Indiana Jones to Star Wars, all the raw assets they have to feed into this algorithm that's creating these things.
Wow, you got me excited now. Imagine if in 10 years they release a new Indiana Jones, just a special one, highlighting that technology, but it's a brand new movie with a 40-year-old Harrison Ford. Well, I'd see it in the theater in 2 seconds.
There's already rumors in Indy 5 that there's gonna be a flashback sequence where he's chasing this Nazi train, and they're gonna use some of this technology on him. And this is going to be 2 years on now from what they did with Luke, so I can only imagine how it's probably going to be completely convincing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I can't wait to see it. That's going to be fun.
Well, I'm going to be the voice of dissension here. I'm very, what's the word?
Wary.
I think
cautious.
I don't know about
protective of the original, where you don't want to see.
No, not protective. It's I don't know if you're ever going to be able to fully replace having an actual performance from an actual human being. I think it's the reason that I think there's always going to be something in your brain that tells you it's not legit.
100% agree. Absolutely.
And I think to try to honestly. I think at some point, if they're going to carry on with Luke, and same thing with Indiana Jones, you're probably gonna have to do a recast, because I just think with the few seconds that Luke was in The Mandalorian works, and it's sort of an apology for The Last Jedi that the fans are gracious and willing to accept, but to have a full on movie. I think if you have Luke dipping in and out in this form, then you'll be able to get away with it. But I think if you try to do an entire feature length movie or 6-8 episode arc with this type of thing, I don't think it'll hold up.
I don't disagree. And, we're talking about Indiana Jones, which is a special, franchise to us too. So you're right. You're always going to be kind of it might look great, but you still know. But that said, the technology could be used for example, in the future, you want to do a Star Wars movie. Well, instead of sitting people down in makeup for 6 hours, all of a sudden their face is a deep faked alien face that is done seamlessly, looks phenomenal. and the person had to sit down for no makeup. They just get on set and they go. So I mean, there's a lot of efficient operations.
Well, they're kind of already doing that now.
Exactly. So I mean, like, this is some cool technology.
I'm talking about humans, doing humans. Aliens is one thing because your brain automatically knows it's not real. I think the one thing that's sort of an anomaly in all that is Gollum. Gollum is a human, well, not a human, but a humanoid who is in a state of, almost like an alien state, but still I remember when I watched The Two Towers, it was so realistic. He was so realistic, it was distracting. It's like I almost couldn't focus on the movie. I could not believe how real that looked. And I think it was more so because it was it could have been like an actual person.
Well, that was 15, 20 years ago almost. And I mean, it stood out because it was novel, because it was so amazing. But some of this stuff is going to be so like commonplace, you won't even know it's there. That's what's so amazing about this technology. You won't even know it's a deep fake.
Yeah.
You won't know. I mean, I see stuff. I watch the deep fake Tom Cruise on TikTok, and I can't tell the damn difference. The guy's amazing.
Yeah.
He looks like Tom Cruise talking to me and being ridiculous. But it's amazing technology. It's very cool. But I have to tell you, some of the Star Wars that we watched, the Bad Batch this season, was a lot of fun to talk about. We had a good season. Season 4 was rocking and rolling, guys. I really enjoyed it. We had some good conversations with Brian. We got him on the show.
Mm-hmm.
The Collector, one of our favorites.
Absolutely.
And it's just a good season, guys. I was really happy. 2 years in. 2 years.
It's been 2 years since we have started this. Still living in these tubes. Before we sign off, I got to say, I know we're the only podcast, but I recently recorded a 21st century podcast with our pal Deke.
Oh, cool.
And
great podcast.
He runs a podcast called Sidetracked, and it's about movies, and we had a very fun discussion about RoboCop. So I'm not sure when that's going to be coming out, but it was kind of a roundtable discussion with our mutual friend Mark and Deke and myself, and we had a good talk about old RoboCop. So, a Sidetracked podcast, and he kind of spells it weird. It's Sidetrack 'D. So, because there's several Sidetrack podcasts, but that's his. So, if you like movies and you like our show, please give him a listen.
It's a great show. But listen, guys, we'll be back. We might even drop something in between. But
we'll drop something, all right.
But tell your friends, have them discover the podcast. Subscribe. We're all over the place. Anywhere you want to find us, we're there. And we'll be back late October, folks. We're not done yet. More to come this year.
Oh, the Halloween episode you're not going to want to miss. So come back and see us in October. We're going to have some tricks and treats for you. But until then, our tubes are closed.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to The Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us here next time as we take you into the 25th century.